All right, so good evening and welcome to the second edition of Blue Skies Leadership Dialogues by Born in Flight. We are excited to have a very good leader today with us. I'll introduce her in a while. Before that, I just wanted to tell you what does Blue Skies Leadership means. So we thought we'll have a very open to sky uh, exploration about what is leadership and metaphorically and symbolically, skies means it's very expansive, it's never ending. So I also believe that leadership is like that, there is no definite definition on it. There is no shape and size and color. Blue skies is the perspective that we see from the earth. Maybe skies don't have any color. So that itself says that leadership can be biased when we start defining it, but we can only experience leadership. And we have a leader who is done very, very well for herself and her team. So
Thank you.
thank you, Radhika, for coming in. So Blue Skies Leadership Dialogues is an opportunity to delve into the minds of the industry leaders like Radhika and visionaries, getting some insights that will shape the future of the leadership. So let me have the privilege of introducing Radhika with us. Uh, Her full name is Radhika Nannapaneni. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Nannapaneni. Yeah.
She's a visionary leader who is very dynamic in her approach, and she has made profound impact on customers, organization, and individuals. She is known for transcending organizational boundaries. She thrives in adapting to change and continuous learning. Her leadership goals revolves around steering cross-functional and high-potential teams to success and nurturing great teams while staying true to core values. And she is going to share some of the core values that she has on leadership today. And beyond her leadership mastery, she is a Kuchipudi dancer and a former haiku writer. I'm curious, what is haiku writer? Uh, and she has added, artistic flair to her, multifaceted personality. She finds solace in melodious music, classical dance, and beauty of nature, seamlessly integrating these passion into her life whenever the opportunity rises. And because the name of the session is Blue Skies Leadership Dialogues, and you can see, she has that artistic touch to it. She's got a background which is blue skies. Thank you, Radhika. So, uh, so for starters, I just want to know what's your take on leadership.
Thank you, Prakash, for that great, wonderful introduction. And yeah, I'm a romantic at heart. So I thought we'll use the blue skies. If not actually in person, at least virtually, we are under the blue skies. So hence my background. So getting back to your question on what leadership is, I think you beautifully summarized what it could be. I just want to add to say leadership doesn't really mean that it should be sticking to a certain title. It's just about how a person leads and takes leadership in anything that they do is what I would consider to be a leadership. So it could be leading somebody, it could be influencing somebody, it could be coaching someone, or taking the lead in your day-to-day work or whatever you're passionate about. So it has nothing to do with title, but it's all about having that passion towards what you do and leading on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very coincidence that, you're also putting leadership in a very exploratory frame of, saying there is no set definition to it. It can be anything, it can be even the passion that you're leading and, whatever you're doing. So,
yeah, true. I mean, everybody is a leader. I mean, it doesn't have to be with regard to a job. It can be in anything you do. You could be, anyone is a homemaker or any kind of profession or no profession at all. I think everybody takes the lead and they lead their lives, be it personal or business.
fantastic, fantastic. I think this is also a very, very flaccid take on, leadership, that you don't have to be a designated leader. Leadership is more about how we do things and, who we are in our own sense. So specific to the topic that we are discussing today, leadership in the age of remote workplace. So as remote work becomes more and more prevalent worldwide, so what do you believe are the core qualities and skills that leader must possess or develop to effectively lead remote teams or foster a sense of connection and engagement? I know I'm asking too much for the first question, but I'm just curious, what is your take on this?
Sure, Prakash. I think a very important question also to self-analyze analysis to be done by each leader. From the time that we pandemic has hit us, right? It's been just about 3-4 years, but I would say over the past 4 years, it's been such transformational change, even within just leading teams remotely. So just within a day, I have personally experienced it going from being on the floor in the office, going into the house, into a room, and then starting to work. And it was just half a day, I would say, when this transition happened, and which would mean that it's so much of a change for people to accept and start learning and working. And I think every year we have been learning to change the way we do business, the way we conduct our teams, the way we interact with each other. So talking about leadership skills, what I would think, and this is personally, and anything I'm sharing is personal and nothing to do with the organizations, but then what I have experienced and learned over the period. Transformational and situational leadership is something that I think is very important because times are changing and they're changing rapidly, be it the work environment or the technology. So transformation from just doing normal things to looking at things differently. So transformation becomes important. The second thing I would say is leading with empathy. We have to show as leaders that we care for the teams that we work with, because empathy is core when it comes to increasing the trust, improving communication, and making the teams feel valued. So empathy really is important. And then, like I mentioned, promoting trust and inclusivity. So here's a situation where we might not meet people on a regular basis, but it becomes important that we show more and more inclusive and make the teams feel that they are included in the conversations, in decision making, because it impacts their everyday life at work. And finally, healthy team engagement. So it is very important, again, to engage the teams very closely, which means improving communication, having those conversations, looking at how career is going to take a leap, and what and how we can help and encourage our teams to grow. I would stop at that, but there are many more that we have to acquire as leadership skills and keep improvising.
Thank you. So I hear you say transformative leadership, empathy, build trust, build inclusiveness. And I also hear you say that, it's very healthy engagement of the team so that, they are progressing in their careers. So I'm curious, in the context of remote work, how can leaders strike that right balance between autonomy and accountability? And you rightly said, people work in their bedrooms, they suddenly come to the living area, they're walking along with the laptop. Laptops have become extension of the arms. Yeah. And it's the work and life in a way is also blurred. We really don't know whether we are working or whether we are spending time with the family. So the work and life, that hyphen which was there, work-life balance, I think that hyphen is blurred more than ever in the last few years. So how does a leader strike the right balance between autonomy and accountability for the teams, ensuring that employees feel empowered while maintaining productivity and alignment with the organization goals?
Yeah, very important. Again, when we started working from home, I think autonomy versus accountability, became an important aspect because it can be confusing or it can be used interchangeably, which is not an ideal situation, right? To ensure that teams are given the ownership and we are able to hold them accountable, or they feel accountable towards the work that they do. A few things that are very important are setting clear expectations. So it is very important for us to tell the teams what is expected of them. And of course, we do this even when we were at office, but then now it becomes all the more important to reiterate and make it more clearer, because earlier maybe they could just walk up to you and ask a question or ask their peers a question, but now you have to call somebody or you have to get in touch with someone and ensure that those are set. So it is very important for us to set those clear expectations so teams know what they're expected to do. They can plan their work accordingly. Second becomes giving them the ownership and the empowerment to do their job, and not really move away from micromanagement or move away from asking several questions, and build that trust, like I said earlier, creating that trust, and be rest assured that the work will be done. Next coming up is necessary tools. So while the teams are working, I think because of remote, there are new tools that we have to create, tools that are accessible and easy to use, very important, so that both leaders and the teams can access them and then save information. People can go and verify that information. It could also be maybe providing them with enough training, enough documentation so they could look at, because it's not easy to just reach out to people like we did earlier. And finally, open communication channels. So that is, again, the teams are aware of how they can communicate with someone, how they can reach out. For example, if I had a tech issue earlier, I would just walk up to a tech team that I knew, or somebody, we had tech cafes on the floors. So we would just go and say, hey, my laptop or something is not working. But now you have to set up a call. You should know what that 800 number is. You should know that the group DL, and send those communications. So it becomes very important for us to provide all that so that the teams become accountable and they are able to do their work, in a much free fashion, and then be able to deliver what is expected of them.
Yeah, I hear two things. One is empowering them to take that ownership, trusting them in what they're doing, have a very open communication. And very interestingly, you also said that there should be necessary tools in place so that they can work remotely. I think that's a very important take. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just to continue, because the work and life is often blurred between professional and personal life, what are some of the strategies you recommend for leaders to support employees' well-being and prevent burnout in their remote work environment?
Good question, Prakash. When we started this, and most importantly, I would say, what should we as leaders not do? The one thing, right, is should not expect teams to be constantly available. I think when we all moved to remote, that was expected unconsciously, right? It's not something that the leaders would want, or people would want, or expect people to respond or turn around work or just be available whenever there's a call or when I ping. And people, obviously, I did hear maybe 4 years ago that people were stressed about being on Teams, being live, being available when the manager calls or sends a note or an email. But I'm sure we have moved away from it. People have learned. So that's the one thing that we should not expect. But establishing a pattern, few things that I think will be important is I should say that thanks to the families, thanks to the personal relationships that we all have, that they are able to accommodate. Like somebody said when we started is, we are now bringing work home. So that is the personal area. And then we are kind of invading our personal lives, our homes, our rooms, everything, because not everybody might have a separate space for work. And that's a new concept overall, because we wouldn't have built homes or thought about even having such a situation where we would work from home. So it becomes really important. And again, thanks to the families for accommodating all of us. So establishing a pattern becomes important, because if daily, even if it is as simple as waking up daily, what time you want to go to work or you want to start work, what times you have calls, and when you want to end. So that establishing that pattern makes it easier, so that there's a schedule you follow, and then you prep for it, or you clear off things and be ready for the work that's required. Second, I would say, is setting boundaries. So there is a really fine line between where we can expect something versus stepping back and saying, no, now is not the time, or we've got what we needed for today, maybe this can wait for tomorrow. So those fine lines are important for leaders to understand. Prioritization hence takes the lead. So we should be able to prioritize work and make sure that we are not encroaching on personal lives or vice versa. And it is also important to communicate with our family to say what is critical, or when you're working, what needs to be done or what cannot be done, or how you cannot participate in certain things. But simultaneously also ensuring that you are able to move away from work and give your time to the personal life, and that becomes important. So I would say overall, Prakash, that it's like a two-way street, right? Leaders walk, and then also the employees also should walk and understand and be able to take the change and look at what's working for them, negotiate, ask for help, look at solutions to make this the best possible way to work.
Brilliant. I'm taking away three very important things. One is to set pattern of working, and you made a very important statement, a very sublime statement. Like unconsciously, we thought that people are available because they are working from home and they're available always. I think that's a huge mindset change that leaders need to bring. That because they're working from home does not mean they're available all the time. And the second thing that you spoke about of having those schedules, setting those patterns, which can help in setting boundaries. For me, one of the most important takeaway from what you just said is the way a leader thanks families for allowing people to work from home. That support. I think that's empathy for me. This is true embodiment of empathy. Thanks for that. Really appreciate.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, especially the TV time, which everybody wants, and then you only have that space where you can work, and then there's no TV time for the family. I really am very conscious sometimes when I try to do that, but I think now we've learned how to get around those, and then how to accommodate and not accommodate.
Absolutely. TV time, maybe kids playing time. They come back from school and they can't
Yeah.
be nice. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So could you share some insights on best practices for communicating with the employees that can bridge the gap between remote team members and promote collaboration and minimize misunderstanding? And the reason why I'm asking this question is there are many people who joined during the lockdowns, and
Right.
some of them joined probably a year or two back. They haven't really seen the team physically. So how do you promote collaboration in this context?
Um, I think it's communication. First, if you talk about communication, really important, and a good balance around over communicating and just communication is important, because there are certain situations where one has to over communicate so that your message is going to people and you're able to communicate and give that opportunity to teams to understand and not lose focus of certain things, right? But in some times, it's over communication is also not good, because it might look like you're just following up on things which where maybe it's not required. So a good balance is very important. Secondly, I would say establish communication norms. So think about how often you want to communicate. The mode of communication, is it that you want to do it over Teams? Do you want to do a video call? Do you want to just chat? You want to send an email? I think it's important for us to think about how we want to communicate. Maybe there's different ways you want to communicate based on what the messaging is and what you want to talk to the teams. For instance, if it's a town hall, then I would do a Teams call and a video call for sure, so that we can see each other, and you can talk to them and build connections, even if it is virtual. The other things are, I would say, create those opportunities, the virtual opportunities to have those conversations. It could be things around celebrating successes. It could be things about celebrating just being together as a team, celebrating wins as a business, or even just simple socializing. Earlier, we used to talk about, the water cooler chats in the, coffee areas or in cafeterias, but now it's not as easy. So creating those virtual moments for teams to communicate is very important. And it doesn't always have to be about business or serious things or presentations, but it can be about just saying hello, and maybe just ask the teams to have their own conversations. It doesn't have to always be led by a leader or a manager to be there. Third, I would say, like I said earlier, use the technology that's available that best suits your teams, best suits your areas and your time zone. So being predictable and certainly setting a time so that people know that at a certain time I know my meeting is going to happen and they are prepared and they are expecting and they come prepared for those calls. So being predictable in certain aspects is very important. So it's not sudden, it's not just sprung up on somebody. Unless, of course, you can't always set a meeting, but if there's these could be casual conversations or just you have a question to ask, you can always feel free to pick the phone and call them or call over Teams. And finally, set timelines and response expectations so that people know as to how soon they have to respond to a mail that comes by or to an expectation so that there is no rush and then the communication becomes more transparent. So being transparent is another aspect. Leaders have to share what their goals are, their visions are, be transparent about anything that's happening across the organization, ask for inputs, and have a dialogue always. I think that's how important communication is. Again, I'll go back to building that trust and being open where we can, which lets people come to the table and, or rather come to the phone or to the system and share their inputs and their opinions so that decision making is also, like I said, inclusive and they can share and collaborate.
I sense, the way you're sharing is there is a lot of need for caring for the well-being of the employees, because that's what kind of propels collaboration and transparency and trust and stuff like that. So just to follow up, I have a question on chat. So which one would you prefer, virtual teams or in-person teams?
I would say a mix, right? So we could take advantage of everything. When it's virtual, you can schedule, what's going to happen and you know how to deal with those. Maybe a personal in-person meeting is not required, not always required. We've learned that, or we are learning those.
Yeah.
So, and I say a mix because I do think that meeting people in person is also very important because, your body language, your communication does strengthen your relationships. And then maybe just by passing by somebody on the floor, you never know, you might meet a new person, you might meet somebody that you were looking to talk to and you just forgot or you were not able to get them. So, and finally also collaborate. You might just want to talk and discuss and have a quick conversation with somebody, and those personal interactions are very helpful. And because if we are on calls virtually, you might not really know who to talk to. Sometimes you might not even think about the person, or you might not see the new opportunity that is coming or what is happening around. So it will help, and especially for people who have joined the organization during the past 3-4 years, I think very helpful and very important. And if you're joining a new organization, all the more important.
Yeah.
Thanks, Harika, for that question.
Thank you. So you said that it's a mix and use it for the advantage. So remote working in the last 4 or 5 years has opened up a lot of possibilities for the organizations that was not there before. So remote work allows organizations to tap into global talent pool. You can work with different time zones. You can pull in agile teams from different corners of the world together and help the projects move forward. So I'm curious, how can leaders navigate the challenges of leading diverse and geographically dispersed teams, leveraging the unique strengths of each team member while promoting inclusion and equity?
Great. So my current role does involve these aspects. So, when I now have an opportunity to lead and work with global teams. And I do think this is a great opportunity, where we can reap the benefits of international diversity, bringing in together different skill set and varied skill set, and maybe people with a lot of experience as well. So you can learn, and it's not always possible if you don't have that kind of a skill set in the location that you are. Having these virtual teams becomes very important as to how we can just learn from them. Secondly, people from different countries or cultures and functional backgrounds, the communication, there's a lot to learn even just within the teams because of different locations and cultures and the expertise they bring to the table, because they can create, a pool of varied talent. On the flip side, there's also a chance for misunderstanding in between teams, because they're placed at different locations. So which is where communication plays a great role in terms of understanding each other. As a leader, I think it becomes important for us as we lead global teams to share the purpose, the common purpose, I would say, for all of us, bring in that sense of team unity so that everybody thinks about their work and their colleagues' work as the same. So everybody is driving towards the same goal at the end of it, and hence there's a sense of belonging for each other. And there's a lot of learning and so much that we can encourage and coach people as well to understand each other, and that brings in benefits of collaboration and great innovation that can come through. It definitely is important for the leader as we lead global teams to be more flexible, to be open, approachable, and transparent. It becomes very important, and because it's not possible always to say I'm not going to go beyond my work hours, and that's part of the deal, right? You're working with global teams, so there's going to be teams with different locations and different time zones. So we have to see how we can adjust our schedule so that we can meet with them, communicate, and bring everybody together, find a common time where maybe everybody can come together if there are teams located in different areas. So it truly can become a global village where everybody is talking about their own work, their skill set that they have, and thinking about how they can help their peers in a different location, maybe with a different skill set. And so it is important that the social distance is really shrinking. We have to find ways of how we can shrink that and see that teams are able to communicate, which is where those opportunities to communicate more often, just communicate with the teams, have different sessions, is very important for a global team.
Interesting. I really like that expression of the social distance is shrinking. So yeah, it's a great move forward, propeller for inclusion and diversity. Brilliant. So Radhika, what we can do is we'll open the forum for maybe 2 or 3 questions live. So before that, people are participating here live. I have a short poll. You can just answer that, and you can unmute and ask a question, or you can put a question on the chat. I will read it out for Radhika. So,
thank you.
Forum is yours. So the poll is live. So Sri Charan says, brilliant, Radhika, and definitely such. Each point is worth the cheers and take home. Kudos. Thanks, Sri Charan. Thanks.
Thank you, Charan. I would also like to ask the audience to say, in your respective areas, maybe you work in different verticals. Is there any best practice, anything that you see that you are doing differently or your organization is doing differently? You could share that as well.
Yeah. Or if you have any question to Radhika, she is here. So since none have any questions, or maybe they are thinking about the question. I'm just curious. How does one identify what are the challenges that someone is facing in a remote setup? As leader, how do you kind of identify what challenge one of your team member is facing? Maybe somewhere working in Slovakia, somebody is working in Italy. How do you identify that someone is challenged?
Some signs that we can see, Prakash, would be one, either their participation levels are really low, they're not able to participate, or they're not able to join meetings, um, or deliver things on time. These become important for us to find out, because if people are working remote, there could be physical conditions that might not be, conducive for them to work, or they have some personal challenges that they need help with, or we see that there's a trend of leaves that people are taking to say, they're more often, taking leaves. So these are some indications, and then it becomes important for us to have those one-to-one conversations to say where we can help them. Is there any support that they need? And ask to see what can we do in order for them to do a better job, or do they need some time off, if there's something pressing at their personal front. So these are some of the things that we kind of look up. And then if we don't see, let's say they're not contributing to any innovations, or not asking the questions that they could, which we know that maybe they should or they could earlier. But now, if we don't find that, then that's a clear indication that they need support, or something is not right, or maybe they just want to take a step back. That could also be fine, but at least it'll be good to have a conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. So if there are no questions from the audience, I'd just like to tell you that, okay, so there is some question coming up. You are always best in providing your inputs, and each and every point is positive approach for the team. Thank you, Satya. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you.
Thank
So this session in the recorded version will be available on LinkedIn. So it is available for people who registered and could not join, and some of you joined late. So if you want to catch up the whole session, you can do so. And it is also available for people who did not register, but maybe they want to watch it later. So this summary of the discussion and the full recording will be available on LinkedIn very soon, maybe in a couple of hours. So if you don't have question now, but if you have some question that you want to ask, you can always buzz in the chat. You can put a comment in the LinkedIn, and Radhika will answer that for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prakash. And I would just like to end to say this is a learning journey. And even as leaders, all of us have several new situations that we face every day. There's something new that comes up. And so it's important for us as leaders to learn, to adapt, and navigate through the situations. And each has a different way of adapting. So, take help, work with your leaders, work with the organization. And I think we'll all be driving towards the common goal that we have, and do the best.
Yeah.
So thank you, Prakash, for this opportunity. It
So
was really.
Radhika, I have a last minute question.
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure.
So as we are moving more inclined to remote work, what can be a best practice to close the gap between new hires and existing associates?
Great. I think earlier, at least in some of the organizations that I worked with, we have a way of embracing new people or new hires who join the organization by creating a buddy system. So we have to continue to do that, and I think we should bring it to a virtual environment, where it means that an experienced employee is supporting the new hire, let's say for the next 3 months or 6 months, to bring them up the learning curve, and also help them network, guide them through there. It doesn't mean that they're going to help them through their productivity or stuff, but at least help them navigate. That's one. And like I mentioned, I think in my conversation, that having those written documentation, training material, making it available, constantly checking in to say if they are getting what they need, becomes very important. So having a frequent dialogue with the new hire is very important. And I think having HR's intervention as well to check on how they're doing, like I said, the healthy way, because it's new organization. Of course, we are moving away from 100% remote to a hybrid work environment, so which is good. You get to see people, but also get your chance at working from home. So I think that becomes very important when there are new hires.
Yeah, great. So a big thank you to Radhika for joining us, and thanks to all the leaders and professionals who have joined from different companies and industries coming on live. Thank you so very much, and see you on LinkedIn very soon in just a couple of hours. Thank you so very much. Have a
Thank
great
you, Prakash. Thanks for this opportunity, and thanks everybody for joining. And hopefully there was some insight. And thanks for the opportunity again.
Thank you. See you next month in the 3rd edition of Blue Skies Leadership Dialogues. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.